Hello and welcome back to another Talking Freight, brought to you, as you know, by Cerasis, the transportation management company. Today we're back with our Final Mile series. As you may know, recently Cerasis launched our Final Mile capability in our TMS, the Cerasis Raider. We made it very easy. You book your LTL first leg, as normal, getting a bill of lading, and you simply select that you need Final Mile, and the system allows you to select a Final Mile carrier and any white glove options. And all the paperwork and invoice is centralized in the system, giving you full control and visibility. That's why after talking about technology in the Final Mile last week, it's time to move beyond tools to performance measuring, talking about Final Mile metrics. Using technology to improve Final Mile metrics is essential to driving down Final Mile cost. But how do shippers know if the technology is helping or hurting? The answer to this question lies in using Final Mile metrics to track key performance indicators and target levels of service to ensure accountability, visibility, and continued reduction of costs in Final Mile delivery. So, with that said, let's talk Final Mile metrics. A recent survey of customer service experiences from DC Velocity revealed many retailers feel current technologies do not address their customer service needs, and as few as 3% of retailers cite full support as part of their current systems. Unfortunately, history teaches shippers that reducing costs means cutting customer service, but integrating customer service data into delivery operations and transportation systems is key to increasing a brand's value. In fact, 72% of survey respondents believe it is very important to improve access to data for in-transit shipments, which includes Final Mile delivery. Essentially, shippers need to track these 11 metrics. Metric 1. On-time deliveries are king of Final Mile metrics. The number of on-time, failed, or late deliveries are more important than any other metric tracked in Final Mile logistics. These metrics provide a quick yes or no analysis of the effectivity of your Final Mile logistics strategy. Metric 2. Fuel consumption rates. Final Mile metrics involving fuel consumption rates can vary and depend on the preference of the company, but how fuel consumption rates are calculated can greatly influence whether a driver is saving or wasting fuel. For example, overall fuel consumption costs may be lower, but interval-based fuel consumption rates could show consistent stopping and starting patterns that do not coincide with existing routes and drive up fuel cost. As a result, fuel consumption rates could be calculated by averaging the total fuel cost per driver, all drivers, per delivery vehicle, and per route. Metric 3. Final Mile vehicle capacity used versus available. Final Mile logistics should also consider the capacity utilized against the available capacity in all Final Mile delivery vans. This metric is calculated by dividing the available capacity by the total capacity. Excess available capacity rates allude to poor loading procedures or the need to consolidate routes. The same calculation is used to calculate capacity used, dividing the capacity used by total capacity. Metric 4. Planned versus actual mileage. Planned versus actual mileage Final Mile metrics are calculated by dividing the actual mileage per vehicle, driver, or route by its own planned mileage. Higher actual mileage rates reveal problems with route planning or unforeseen detours to route schedules. Metric 5. Driver hours in motion and stationary. In motion and stationary driving hours are expenses in Final Mile logistics, and unless your company employs a fully autonomous and drone-assisted delivery network, stops are necessary for Final Mile. However, the number of stops and hours of both in motion and stationary position can help measure the performance of your drivers. Excess stationary hours or excess in motion hours, these metrics are calculated by dividing the total amount of time drivers spend on a route by the number of hours in motion and the number of hours stationary. Metric 6. Cost per item, per mile, and per vehicle. Final Mile metrics should track the cost per item, per mile, and vehicle associated with a specific route and the company as a whole. As a result, shippers should average the total cost per item for a given route and for the company's shipments over a set period. The same average process should apply to both miles and per vehicle metrics too. Metric 7. Number of stops. Final Mile logistics and metrics should also track the number of stops per vehicle. This is important to monitoring fuel cost, but it can also allude to poor route optimization practices. In other words, vehicles with a high number of stops should be reevaluated for ways to improve route schedules. Metric 8. Average service time. The average service time metric can be complicated because it involves different data to calculate, depending on the source of an order. Most commonly, it is calculated by dividing the total service time at the store by the total number of deliveries. In other words, what is the average amount of time spent per order between the store, the warehouse, and other pre-shipping processes? Metric 9, customer complaints. The need to manage customer service and address customer complaints leads to another metric in final mile logistics. What is the total number of customer complaints and how do they stack up against the total number of deliveries? This metric is calculated by dividing the total number of deliveries by the total number of complaints received. Metric 10, order accuracy. Order accuracy is calculated by comparing the known inaccuracies of orders against all shipped orders. Since some consumers may never report inaccurate orders, it is difficult to track a specific order inaccuracy metric. Instead, shippers should track order accuracy rates by dividing the total number of shipped orders by the number of orders not subject to customer service disputes, calls, or complaints. And metric 11, damage claims. A final metric to track is also about problems with orders, damage claims. Shippers should track the number of incoming damage claims against the total number of shipments. This is calculated by dividing the number of damage claims by the total number of shipments. The resulting value is the percentage of damage claims in decibel form. In conclusion, using metrics, shippers can improve final mile logistics. Metrics allow shippers to understand the ins and outs of final mile logistics, and metrics provide a means of measuring the performance of final mile logistics plans against actual processes and their associated costs. As a result, shippers can make changes to their operations to improve final mile services through final mile metrics, and knowing more about final mile is key to providing more than just the standard final mile delivery options. That's it for this week's Talking Freight. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Hold up, before you go, check out all the videos in our TMS series by clicking here, subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking here, and check out Cerasis.com by clicking right above my head.